Welcome to the deep dive. We live in this era where friction has basically been aggressively engineered out of our daily lives.
Oh, completely. Everything is seamless now.
Right, like if you want a week's worth of groceries, you just tap a piece of glass in your pocket and boom, they appear on your porch.
Yeah. Or if you need to move, say, $50,000 across the country.
Exactly. You just look at your phone's camera, it scans your face, and the money is gone.
No.
We've fundamentally been conditioned to believe that every complex, historically difficult process has just been smoothed out by digital infrastructure.
And that creates a massive blind spot for people.
It really does.
We assume that, the more important the transaction is, the more likely it is that some Silicon Valley tech company has built this foolproof, seamless app to handle it for us.
Yeah, that's definitely the assumption. But if you take that expectation of like frictionless digital convenience and you crash it head first into the incredibly high stakes, historically stubborn world of Massachusetts legal documents and real estate, you are in for a brutal reality check.
A very extensive reality check, usually.
Honestly, it's very much like ordering $1 million state-of-the-art self-driving car only to realize when it gets delivered to your driveway that state law requires you to sit in the front seat and physically pedal it with your feet.
That is a perfect analogy. The chasm between what you assume technology can legally accomplish and what the actual statutes demand is just vast, especially in New England.
And navigating that specific gap is our mission for this deep dive. Because if you are listening to this right now, maybe you're prepping to buy your first home, or you work in HR trying to onboard a remote employee.
Or even facing an unexpected family emergency like a loved one needing a medical directive.
Right, exactly. If that's you, you really need to understand the hidden mechanics of this system. Our sources for this deep dive are these really comprehensive legal updates and guides from hiremobilenotary.com, and they provide this highly revealing window into the regulatory landscape.
Where they really break down the reality on the ground.
They do. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
And I think we need to start with the great digital mirage of Massachusetts law, which is remote online notarization, or RON.
Yeah, remote online notarization is absolutely where we have to begin. Simply because it's the source of, well, the most dangerous misconceptions in the market right now.
Because people read the headlines, right?
Exactly. People read the news and think the problem is already solved.
And looking at the timeline in our sources, it's totally easy to see why they think that. I mean, Governor Maura Healey signed Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. This was heralded as huge news in the legal tech world.
It was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, it officially made Massachusetts the 43rd state to authorize RON, and it carried a hard effective date on January 1st, 2024. So the average person reads that headline and reasonably concludes, hey, I can finally finalize my mortgage refinancing from my kitchen table on a Zoom call.
Right, but what's fascinating here is the stark difference between a legislative authorization and operational reality.
Oh, yeah. The operational side is a mess.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, we are looking at sources from April 2026. That is more than 2 years after that effective date, and Massachusetts RN is still effectively paralyzed.
Wow.
The legislature passed the law, sure, but the Secretary of the Commonwealth, the office responsible for actually regulating notaries, never published the required training modules.
Wait, serious?
Seriously. Furthermore, they never released the online notification forms that notaries physically need to submit to register for the platform.
Wait, I am stuck on this. If a governor signs a bill into law and it has a literal effective date, how does a state agency just not publish the forms?
It happens more than you'd think.
Is that even legally permissible? I mean, it feels like buying a 5G smartphone where the city council approved the cell towers, but the construction company just decided not to pour the concrete.
It really comes down to the mechanics of administrative law. The legislature writes the broad statute, which usually contains a clause instructing the state agency to, quote, promulgate rules and regulations.
Ah, the fine print.
Exactly. The Secretary's office has to determine all the highly technical specifications, like what encryption standards are required for the digital seal, how is the video data stored, how is identity proofing conducted.
Okay, that sounds complicated.
It is. And because the agency has simply not finalized those administrative rules, the system cannot legally activate. Their own official guidance states explicitly that notaries should not use online remote platforms yet.
So what's the actual number of registered online notaries?
Consequently, there are exactly 0 Massachusetts notaries legally registered to perform RON right now.
0. Wow. Okay, but that brings in a massive logistical question for me. If the local system is stalled out, why am I restricted to a local notary?
What do you mean?
Well, we live in a borderless digital economy, right? States like Florida, Texas, and Virginia, they've had fully operational ARN systems for years.
Oh, sure. Yeah?
So if I can hire a web developer in Texas, why can't I just log onto a platform and use a Texas-based online notary for my Massachusetts document?
Technically speaking, there are interstate recognition laws. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 183, actually does acknowledge out-of-state notarial acts.
Okay, so I can use them.
Well, the critical mechanism to understand here isn't the state law itself. It's the specific institution receiving your document.
I see.
It simply does not matter if a state broadly recognizes an out-of-state digital seal if the ultimate gatekeeper of your transaction rejects it.
So the people holding the keys to the actual assets are the ones saying no.
That is the bottleneck. The Massachusetts Registry of Deeds, the probate courts, major local financial institutions, they're notoriously conservative.
They don't like change.
Not at all. Until the Secretary of the Commonwealth finalizes the local RN regulations and signals that digital seals are fully secure, most of the registry offices are outright rejecting them.
Even if it's legally valid from Florida.
Yep. You look at a printed out PDF with a, pixelated digital stamp from Florida, and they refuse to record it. They demand physical, wet ink signatures and raised, physically embossed seals.
Man. So if you attempt to use a digital shortcut for something going to a Massachusetts institution, you aren't just risking a minor delay, you are risking a catastrophic rejection.
You're risking the whole deal blowing up.
Right. And that transitions us to the absolute highest stakes arena, where a rejection is basically a financial nightmare, the Massachusetts real estate market.
Oh, the real estate market in this state is the ultimate wet ink environment. It is completely unforgiving of procedural errors.
According to the sources, Massachusetts operates under a very specific framework. It's an attorney closing state, right?
Correct.
Meaning a notary does not run the closing, they cannot draft the deeds, they can't provide legal advice, and they definitely cannot alter the instructions. Their role is strictly to support the licensed closing attorney.
Exactly. The attorney presides over the legality of the entire transaction, but the notary acts as the functional engine.
The engine, I like that.
Yeah, because the notary is physically there for identity verification, witnessing the signing, applying the physical seal, logging the journal entry. They are the ones ensuring what the industry calls clean, recordable execution.
I want to dig into that term, clean, recordable execution, because the sheer volume of paper involved here is staggering.
It really is.
A standard full purchase mortgage packet contains between 60 and 130 individual signature points. We are talking about initials on every page, dates, full legal signatures. It's like a physical endurance test for the buyer.
Hand cramps are a real thing at the closing table. But the reason for that exhaustive physical paperwork is deeply tied to the legal mechanism of chain of title.
Chain of title, right.
When you buy a property, you aren't just taking the keys, you are adding a link to an unbroken historical chain of ownership that stretches back hundreds of years.
Wow, literally hundreds of years.
Exactly. And the registry is obsessed with perfect wet ink execution. Because if a single notary misses an embossed seal on a deed, or, say, their state commission expired the day before the signing, that specific link in the chain is legally vulnerable.
So, 20 years from now, a long-lost relative of the seller could theoretically look at the public record, see the missing seal, and try to claim the transfer was invalid.
That is the exact nightmare scenario the registry is trying to prevent.
Yeah.
They will instantly kick back any document that isn't absolutely perfect.
That makes sense.
And Massachusetts complicates this mechanism even further with its wildly fragmented county divisions.
I saw that in the notes, and it just seems absurd in the modern era. It's not just one centralized registry per county.
No, it traces back to the 19th century. Counties in Massachusetts were geographically large, and traveling by horse and buggy to record a deed took too long.
Horse and buggy.
Right, so several counties split their registries. Middlesex County, for example, operates two entirely separate registries of deeds.
Oh, boy.
The Northern Registry is in Lowell, covering towns like Andover and Tewksbury. And the Southern Registry is in Cambridge, covering Newton, Waltham, and Lexington.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the process is this hyper-localized and fragile, where sending a document to Lowell instead of Cambridge, or missing one initial out of 130 can blow up a deal, How do closing attorneys actually manage this?
It's a logistical nightmare for them.
I mean, buyers have chaotic lives. They have demanding jobs, childcare emergencies, unexpected business travel. They can't always just drive to a downtown law office at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday.
They really can't. So they manage it by relying on highly specialized mobile professionals.
Okay.
Since they cannot rely on a digital cloud to move the documents, they have to rely on a human being who physically transports that legal expertise to the borrower's location.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is why certified notary signing agents and SAs exist. They are trained specifically to wrangle these massive mortgage packets, ensuring that the wet ink lands exactly where the registry demands it, eliminating the risk of a bounced recording.
But the sources also highlight that it isn't just multi-million-dollar real estate deals where this physical human presence is mandatory.
No, not at all.
There is a whole separate category of deeply personal legal situations where a notary isn't just a bureaucratic functionary, but like an indispensable safeguard for human rights.
We definitely have to look at the mobile services provided for hospitals, nursing homes, and assisted living facilities.
Right. Executing documents like durable powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, living wills.
Exactly.
These are often executed during moments of acute family crisis. I mean, a loved one might be facing major surgery or entering hospice care.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the inherent limitations of technology become painfully obvious.
Yeah.
Even if the Secretary of the Commonwealth wakes up tomorrow and fully operationalizes on, a Zoom call fundamentally cannot replace these bedside visits.
I want to understand the legal mechanism there, because if the goal is just to witness a signature on a healthcare proxy, why is a physical presence legally superior to, say, an iPad propped up on a hospital tray?
It comes down to the core legal duty of cognizance assessment.
Cognizance assessment.
Yes, a notary's job is not just verifying that the ID matches the face. In high vulnerability situations, the notary must assess whether the signer actually understands the immense legal power they are signing away.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If an elderly patient is granting their child a durable power of attorney, which gives them total control over their bank accounts and medical decisions, the notary has to be absolutely certain the patient is lucid.
That requires reading the room in a way a webcam simply doesn't allow.
You have to look them in the eye. You have to ask conversational questions to ensure they know what day it is and what the document does.
Right.
Furthermore, you have to ensure there is no coercion taking place just out of frame of the camera.
Ah, that's dark, but so true.
An abusive family member could easily stand behind a laptop screen, pressuring a vulnerable patient to sign. A mobile notary physically entering the room acts as an impartial witness and a barrier against elder abuse.
So a notary isn't just a human rubber stamp. In these edge cases, they act like an impartial witness and a wellness check rolled into one.
Exactly.
And the sources point out another layer of human complexity that software algorithms struggle to solve, which is language barriers.
Oh, that's a huge issue in Massachusetts.
Imagine being in a hospital room in Greater Boston. You're trying to execute a complex medical directive, and the patient only speaks Arabic or French.
The standard protocol for a language barrier is really cumbersome. If the notary does not fluently speak the language of the document and the signer, the law generally requires bringing in a separate certified interpreter.
Which introduces massive friction.
Massive.
You have to coordinate a third-person schedule, you pay an additional hourly fee, and you inject yet another stranger into a highly sensitive, private, medical, or legal moment.
And Massachusetts has incredibly diverse communities, making this a frequent hurdle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finding a notary who doesn't just tolerate the language barrier by using a translation app, but who natively understands the document language completely changes the dynamic.
I can imagine.
Whether you are dealing with an Arabic immigration form, a French-Canadian business certificate, or a healthcare proxy, having a single professional who can fluently communicate and legally notarize the document ensures true, informed consent.
That's amazing. Let's bring in one more edge case from the corporate world that our sources cover because it perfectly illustrates this tension between remote work and physical laws.
Okay.
If you're an HR director in Boston and you're hiring a remote software engineer in California, you have to complete the federal I-9 form for employment eligibility.
Yes. The I-9 is a classic example of federal law demanding physical reality. The Department of Homeland Security requires employers to physically examine the unexpired employment authorization documents.
Like a passport or a green card.
Exactly.
During the pandemic, there were temporary flexibilities allowing employers to inspect these IDs over video calls, but those exceptions ended.
they're gone.
You can't just have your new hire hold their passport up to a webcam anymore. The employer, or an authorized representative like a mobile notary, must physically hold the document, inspect the microprinting, feel the texture, and verify it belongs to the person standing in front of them.
Which leads us to the analytical workaround presented in our sources.
Yes, the solution.
If you are a consumer or a business trapped between needing modern speed and convenience, but legally bound by strict wet ink laws, fragmented county registries, and complex human elements, well, you cannot force the digital system to work.
You have to upgrade the logistics of the human.
Exactly.
And that is the business model at the center of our sources, HireMobileNotary.com, led by Hanson Webb.
Right.
Looking at this purely from an operational standpoint, it's a fascinating solution to the bottleneck we've been discussing. They are offering the on-demand instant dispatch convenience that Silicon Valley promised, but they're delivering it via a highly credentialed physical expert.
The credentials are what mitigate the risk here. You are looking at a professional licensed in Massachusetts since 2007.
That's a lot of experience.
Over 18 years of specific, localized experience. Over 11,190 successful real estate signings. They hold National Notary Association certification as a loan signing agent.
Wow.
And, addressing the pain point we just covered, Hanson Webb is fully fluent in English, Arabic, and French.
They eliminate the need for the interpreter entirely. They bring the legal execution directly to your kitchen table, your hospital room, or your corporate office.
Any way you need it.
And they cover Greater Boston, the Merrimack Valley, Worcester County, and beyond, operating 7 days a week, including evenings.
The integration with the legal industry is also notable. They work directly with closing attorneys and title companies, providing same-day PDF scans of the executed documents and handling the FedEx overnight returns.
That's full service.
But the most disruptive element of their model is actually the pricing structure.
The flat rates?
Yes. They do not collect surprise fees from the borrower at the closing table. They charge transparent flat rates, like $35 for an in-office single document, or $150 to $250 for a full mobile loan signing.
That's very reasonable.
In an industry where attorneys bill by the hour and a delayed closing can cost thousands of dollars in lost mortgage rate locks, a $150 flat fee for guaranteed first-pass recordable execution functions as an insurance policy.
So what does this all mean? Is this platform operating like a gig economy app?
What do you mean?
Because if I am booking a notary through a portal and they just dispatch a random person who managed to pass a basic online background check, that seems to reintroduce all the liability and risk we are trying to avoid.
No. The sources are explicit that it operates on the exact opposite model. HireMobileNotary.com is not a staffing agency or a gig app.
Okay, good.
When you retain their services, you are specifically getting Hanson Webb or his dedicated trilingual colleague, Nora.
Oh, I see.
You are not rolling the dice on the gig economy. You are retaining a known, proven professional who understands the granular difference between the Middlesex North and South registries, who knows how to legally assess cognizance in a hospice ward, and who stands behind their work.
Okay, let's step back and survey the entire landscape we have covered. Because the headlines claiming Massachusetts has digitized its notary laws are, for all practical purposes today, an illusion.
Totally.
Administrative bottlenecks have completely stalled the system. Furthermore, relying on out-of-state digital platforms is a massive gamble because Massachusetts institutions, particularly those incredibly strict county registries of deeds, they demand perfect physical wet ink execution to preserve the historical chain of title.
And beyond the strict property laws, the deeply human aspects of this profession, ensuring vulnerable hospital patients truly consent without coercion, navigating complex Arabic and French language barriers, and physically verifying federal I-9 identity documents.
Right.
All of that demands a physical presence that software algorithms simply cannot replace.
So for you, the listener, the immediate takeaway is entirely pragmatic. Whether you are finalizing the paperwork on your absolute dream home, onboarding a new remote employee, or managing a sudden medical crisis requiring a power of attorney, relying on a digital shortcut will likely result in catastrophic delays and rejected documents.
It's just not worth the risk.
The actual shortcut, the only reliable way to combine modern convenience with bulletproof legal security in Massachusetts, is to hire a localized physical expert like HireMobileNotary.com who drives the law directly to your door.
Which leads us with a really compelling question about the macroeconomics of this situation.
Ooh, okay.
If Massachusetts continues to delay digital integration while maintaining these fragmented, hyper-strict county registries, will this administrative friction eventually cause the state to lose out?
That's a great point.
As capital becomes more fluid, we have to wonder if fast-moving real estate investors and businesses will simply start routing their money toward more digitally accommodating, frictionless states like Texas or Florida, leaving Massachusetts behind in a self-imposed wet ink bottleneck.
Man, the self-driving car might look great in the showroom, but if the state won't pave the roads, you are better off hiring the best driver in town. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.